All right, going to call the Policies and Priorities Committee meeting to order for Monday, September 9th. Approve the agenda, please. Councilor Norberry.
That all items in the September 9th Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Clickash. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes for August 12th, 2024. Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation, please. Councilor Noxana.
That the August 12th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Julik. Any errors or omissions from council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Business arising from the minutes, council? Anything from staff?
No.
Thank you. Moving on to reports, letter of support, interprovincial mutual aid, report dated September 9th, 2024, from the Director of Protective Services, the Fire Chief, regarding a letter of support for interprovincial mutual aid. Recommendation, please, Councillor Julik.
That council provides a letter of support to the Peace River Regional District for the pursuit of an interprovincial mutual aid agreement between the PRRD and the County of Grand Prairie.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion? Councillor Julik.
I just think it's a really good idea. We're really close, and it was interesting to read in the report that it's relatively easy for us to jump the border, but not so much for Alberta to jump the border back. And we've had just with the fire seasons being what they are, I think it's a really good idea, and I appreciate PRD reaching out to us to ask for some support and hope we can go forward.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So just a couple of comments. I sit on the PRRD, so this was definitely something that came out of the PRRD, because it's easy for us to access the Alberta side from anywhere, whether it's the District of Tunbridge Fire Department heading out, they can go in and assist if they're called upon. But and Dawes Creek and Poos Koopy, but it's the other way, trying to get assistance if we are tied up and there's an MVA on the border side of Alberta. It's very tough to get Grand Prairie County to respond, and they have to get permission. And it's hopefully this, by us sending a letter of support in other municipalities, it'll give us a little bit of weight when we approach it through the governments. So, okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Kids program, Kids Summer Camp Program, report dated September 3rd, 2024, from the Director of Community Services and Facilities regarding the Kids Summer Camp Program. Recommendation. Councillor Noxana.
The council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Julik. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I'm happy to see a lot of really detailed information in this report. It answers a lot of questions I think a lot of us had in the spring leading up to the startup of Kids Summer Camp. I would like to know if it has ever been discussed or thought of approaching the YMCA to see if they would run this camp for us. They're the experts in childcare in Tumbler Ridge, and it seems a fitting camp for them.
Ms. Scott.
I will ask the Director of Community Services if that discussion has happened with BY.
Push the button. It's out. Must not be charged.
That's okay.
No, we're on Zoom, so we need a mic.
Need to get tapped.
Here you go. Yeah, so we did have many discussions with the YMCA regarding how to support them, but there was no conversation about them taking over the program.
Follow up, Councillor Noxana.
Nope. That's
Thank you.
fitting to you.
Any other discussion? Councillor Julik.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. The information was great. One quick question, the total 80 kids, are those individual 80 kids, or is that, could that have been kids, 80 kids throughout the whole time, or if I came 3 days, was I counted as 3 kids?
Ms. Scott?
Sorry for the visual.
I think that means 86 kids in total, but again, just in case I'm wrong, I'll let the Director of Community Services answer that.
Here it comes. Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
86 individual kids.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. I was glad to see this report come back to us. This was kind of a hot issue for myself, making sure that we can not overlap services with the YMCA. And I was really glad to see that the YMCA has provided a letter showcasing that fact that we were able to find that happy medium and still offer a service to the community. So thanks for bringing this forward and look forward to it next year.
Okay. Any other discussion? Just a couple comments. Thanks for the report, very thorough. I think by council debating and looking at reducing the camp hours, it did not affect the turnout. We actually increased by 6 children. Maybe that's just more families in town, but it didn't drop in attendance, which I think is very, very important to look at when we did decide to shorten the hour spans on that. And then obviously reading through the report and hearing from the YMCA, it did not affect their program at all. So it actually worked together with the district community center, and we're able to keep theirs full, as well as have children in the one that was put on by the district. A couple of things I noted in the report is staff had done a little bit more thorough report, reached out to other municipalities and shows that other municipalities also offer this program, but those programs that are offered in the other communities, they actually put a charge to it. It's not ran as a free camp. There's actually a charge for it. So I think, to see that kind of information is important. To me, I don't think it makes me look at changing the way we operate ours. I think my thing is this council, but even previous council have really put forward for things for our youth and our children to make sure, one, they're staying active, but also getting them out and interacting with other children and peers of their groups in a good environment. And I think it showcases Tumbler Ridge when we do that, and it showcases the staff that the municipality hires to put on the program. So again, I just want to thank the staff to put the report together. I think it's great when we ask for a report, and it wasn't something I was expecting to see that thorough, so I appreciate it. So thanks very much to staff. Okay, anything else from council in regards to Kids Summer Camp Program? Okay. Moving on to operating surplus fund policy, report dated September 9th, 2024 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding the operating surplus fund policy. Recommendations, one at a time. Councillor Julik.
That the operating surplus policy fund report is received for discussion. You want the next one?
Seconder, please. Councillor Noxana, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Julik.
I was able to come in and talk to Ms. Scott today before, which was good because I understand the whole policy a lot better after talking to her. I really appreciate staff going through the policies and finding some places where we can improve, and I think they did a really good job with this one. And so I can make the motion now, or I can wait.
It's up for discussion.
Okay. I like it.
Okay, thanks. Any other discussion from council? Okay, take recommendation number 2, please. Councillor Norbury.
That the administration brings the operating surplus policy fund for formal approval at a regular council meeting, replacing the TR 33 reserve management fund policy.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. 6.4, tangible capital asset policy amendment. Recommendation. I'll put the recommendation on the floor that the administration brings the amended tangible capital asset policy for formal approval at the regular council meeting as presented. Seconder, Councillor Julik. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. 6.5, finance policies to be repealed. Report dated September 9th, 2024, from the Deputy Corporate Officer recommending the repeal of obsolete and non-applicable finance policies. Councillor Julik.
That the administration bring the following policies forward at a regular council meeting for formal repeal: TR 34 revenue, TR 35 taxation, and TR 50 grant flow-through.
Seconder, Councillor Clickash. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. 6.6, grant funding and revenue resulting in increased property taxation. Report dated September 9th, 2024, from the Chief Financial Officer regarding grant funding and revenue loss. Recommendation, Councillor Norbury.
I'd like to bring this forward for discussion.
Seconder, Councillor Julik. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kurkowka. So we have a report outlining the costs associated with our nonprofit organization. The report gives us a breakdown of all the money spent, but I think it misses something. I think it misses the cost saved by having our volunteers run multiple events in our community, volunteer run RV parks, volunteers who oversee large organizations, saving us administrative costs. I'd like to highlight our mission statement at the beginning of every council agenda. Council is committed to the excellence in government that reflects our citizens' interests, values, and goals. Their interests go beyond clean water, garbage collection, sewer systems, roads, sidewalks, streetlights, and fire and police protection. When was the last time we've heard about people bragging about garbage collection services in our community? I tell everyone about the amazing museum I visited in Drumheller, the zoo I visited in Calgary, the visitor center I went to in Whistler that had multiple different language speakers that had providing services, or the warm and welcoming Prince George Public Library that I attend when I'm at their conference center. We're responsible for making a place where people want to live, a community that serves the social well-being of people, and I would consider that an essential service, something that is perhaps missed by people who fly in and fly out of a community. What is the heart and soul of a community? Nonprofit, volunteer-run organizations. Without them, all we are is a bunch of infrastructure. Tumbler Ridge was created uniquely. It has a large catchment radius to get taxation revenue from industry to help pay for the high level of services. 81% of our taxation is provided by utilities, light and heavy industry. And we're not including gas tax and other government transfers for which we receive capital projects. One of the purposes of this report is to highlight the loss of revenue. Lower revenue of the district, how much of these services would not be provided to the community? We don't charge for a room rental. Will it actually be rented? I mean, that's debatable, right? I think it would result in a loss of services to our community. How much would it cost for us to provide these services nonprofits provide for us? Executive directors, clerks, other workers, all work for less than employees of our district do. We're saving money by having these organizations, by having them choosing their passions to offer a service versus higher pay found elsewhere. The teen center, daycare, Lions Campground, they were all run by the district at one point. There's a reason why we have nonprofits take them over. They cost less than if we were to run it. Looking at the costs, how much do these organizations bring into the community? How many businesses make money due to the increases in traffic of our visitor center, our museum, our snowmobile club, our ATV club? These organizations have an economic impact that is not listed in the report. How much value do we generate by investing in these organizations? By supporting the visitor center, we support the geopark. They bring almost $200,000 in additional funding into the community, money that is spent into the community, directly to our businesses. The museum, same thing. We invest $220,000. We get hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional funding by having them here. And one of the points in the report talks about the loss revenue of giving out free facility passes for our nonprofit groups. We give them to our doctors, we give them to search and rescue, we give them to their families. Having a gym, having a pool, having a golf course, these are all fixed costs. We do not pay a variable cost per use, per member, other than a potential unrealized loss of revenue from them not having to buy a facilities pass. The only way to reduce those costs would be to reduce our service level. Getting rid of staff that staff these organizations. So I just don't think that's fair to showcase that in this report. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Jilek.
So I guess I'm a little mixed up on where Councillor Norbury's coming from. The issue or purpose of this report was to provide council information on grants and services provided by the District of Tumbler Ridge that have an impact on property taxation, and to give us information prior to our budget deliberations to assist in decision-making. I know this is something that I've asked for numerous times. What is it exactly that we're giving? And it's not about, for me, it's not about looking at nonprofits necessarily or anything like that. It's about us making sure that we're doing our job as town council, which is to be in charge of the expenditures, like the money part. I know there's a formal thing, I can't think of the name, but that's what our job is. We are supposed to be here to manage the money. So if I go ahead and I say, oh yeah, we should just give this out to whomever, well then I'm not really doing my job if I don't know how much that money is. And I think that our report is very well written in explaining why this stuff is important for us to know about. I would say on page 47, municipalities tend to send a maximum of 4 to 5% of taxation for grants, waivers, permissive, blah, 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 because as the district provides over 2.5 times that amount of the 5% maximum, which would be 540,000, not the 1 point whatever million we do, that we run the risk of the district providing the majority of funding and entering into a related party situation for not-for-profit organizations, which means, if I understand correctly, and I hope that somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, that means then that nonprofit has to be attached to the District of Tumbler Ridge, which means a whole other big box of issues. So I don't in any way see this report as being, well, we can't help nonprofits or we shouldn't help nonprofits, or for me, what I see is this is giving us the information that we need to make fully knowledgeable decisions. I, for one, appreciate this report. 1.131 million for not-for-profit organization. That's a lot of change. And we don't find that in the couch cushions, so I had to throw that in. Anyways, I think that when we look at the RV park and the Lions Park, the Lions Park is run by a nonprofit. The RV park used to not be, so I think that there's some different things like that. And I think we also need to keep in mind our official community plan 6.7.5, ensuring that all full costs for infrastructure renewal are incorporated into taxes and utility rates, and proactively apply for the infrastructure-related provincial and federal grants and funding where possible. I just think this is for us to be mindful when we're going forward, when we're looking at huge tax increases. Like, we're starting at 5.2, and we're all pretty knowledgeable that that's probably not where it's going to start or stop this year. Thanks.
Thanks. I'm just going to make a couple comments before I go to Councillor Noxana. I mean, I appreciate the report from staff. I think to me, what it does is shows transparency back to our taxpayers. So to me, it's not about, should we support certain organizations or whatever. I think it's, just shows that maybe we do a fee for service or a grant and aid for a certain amount during budget time, but there's actually hidden costs that we weren't seeing. And I think that's what this does. It's not about should we support certain organizations. And I apologize, I'm not going to mention them all, because to me, I think this community was built on non-for-profits and volunteer hours. I mean, we talked about it at a grand opening that happened yesterday at the Fall Fair. I mean, the sweat and the volunteer hours and the tears that go into stuff like that. Never mind our other organizations that have gone through that, starting up and working through it, been around for 18 years, 19 years, 30 years. You know, they had to do the same thing that the TRDA Society had to do when they did the grand opening at the Fall Fairgrounds, and working into that, being able to be grand opening. So to me, I think it's about being transparent to the taxpayers to show that we may do a fee-for-service or a grant and aid, but we also have hidden fees. I guess not hidden, but maybe they weren't out during budget discussions. I won't say they've never been hidden, but we know that there's other costs that, you know, whether that's the, you know, Councilor Norbury brought it up, we give out complimentary passes. All right. If there's nobody in the pool, what's it cost us to run the swimming pool? We still have to run it, still gotta heat it, still gotta circulate water. Doesn't matter if there's one person in there, nobody in there, or 30 people in there. It costs the same. You gotta have 2 lifeguards on duty. If there's more people, they probably have to bring in more staff. But there's still a cost to run that pool, no matter what, if there's anybody using it or not using it. So when we talk about passes to our medical professions and RCMP and firefighters and stuff like that, to me, that's important. I mean, to me, I remember when I first joined council and the amount of times that we were short-staffed at the health center, and you know, I think it's assisted it. When I've talked to some of the agency nurses that come to Tumble Ridge, and we go over and you meet them and you give them the pass, they talk about it. And then you meet with them again somewhere else in another community, and they actually talked about it to other nurses or doctors, what they received when they came to Tumble Ridge for 2 weeks. So I think it's important, but I just want to make sure that we see it, that this is a report to get the information out there. One, for council to see it, but to be transparent to the taxpayers that, yes, we may be giving a certain amount of money to an organization, but there's other monies that maybe we didn't add into the debate when we were debating the fee-for-service or that grant and aid. That's how I took the report, and I mean, obviously, I think we need to look at it and dig into it. To me, it's not a tool I'd use for debate. I mean, since we've opened up a couple things about lost things, and don't see it in the report, I did ask the question. I mean, when we talk about there's loss at a campground, where's the breakdown? What is that? What's the $18,000 loss? I'd like to know what it is. I mean, I'm well aware that my understanding, and I'll use the Lions Campground, is unless there's something different, there was a capital expense there or something, we turn the water on, turn the water off. We collect the sandy dump, which is public use. It's not the Lions. It's outside the gates. And then we remove the sandy dump by the washings would be theirs, and then garbage. So when I see $18,000 loss, to me, is there a capital concern that happened in there, that was a capital in 2023, or where's that lost revenue? So to me, as this progresses, that's the kind of stuff I'm gonna be looking for. If we're gonna throw reports out there about losses by certain organizations, that we have the full detailed information in the report that we can all look at. Councillor Hoffman, then Councillor Noxana, then Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you. I really liked this report. It was really well laid out. It had a lot of valuable information in it. But I do agree that, with a lot of what Councillor Norbury said, that our volunteers have worked very hard for our community. And while I see Tumble Ridge pays a lot more out in fee-for-service and grant and aid than other similar communities, it also shows how much better our community is. And I'd argue that with almost anyone. We have volunteers that have been dedicated since the start of our community, that have done amazing things. And looking through the numbers, there's some things maybe we could tweak a little bit, but it's really exciting to see what our volunteers have brought just a mine town built to coal mine into. None of what we have now would even be possible without them. So, I don't know, I like reports like this. I like the data, I like the numbers. It is something we've been looking at for a long time, so really happy to see it here in our agenda package.
Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm never going to argue with good information. I appreciate good information. In fact, I could deal with more, not that I'm going to ask staff to give me more in this particular topic, but I think what Councillor Norbury is touching on is really at core here. The dollar cost versus not is not a straight comparison. You're not counting the expertise and hours of our volunteers with these numbers, which has been said before. I think that's core here. And what I don't see, and I don't expect staff to have accurate numbers for these, is what it would have cost us if we were to have the same level of service and that we're running it ourselves. And all of a sudden we take out of fees, grants and fees, and we put it under operating budget to keep the same level going on. So I would argue that that there's a whole lot of savings we're not seeing here either. Just taking one at the bottom, TRR Youth Services. I see that we have $1 lease for land. I don't see what we would think that we would be getting for revenue for that. I don't see what it would cost for the town to run it, and would it do it as well as what's being done by volunteers? Like, these are just hard numbers to come by. And that's really the biggest part that I would take from this, is that it's really hard to come up with a valuation of what these services add to the town. And that 14% number, without a more direct comparison of what a typical town, the 14% for ours versus the 5% standard for another town. I don't know what an average town provides. I haven't lived in a whole bunch of small towns to see what the real level of service is. But I'll tell you, I'm happy with this town. I like what we do here, and I like the level, and I like how proud people are to be from Tumble Ridge, and to say how they feel the town is great. And I would like to continue doing that. So I think it's good to have these numbers in mind when we are doing our budgeting, but it speaks to our costs, not our value. And unless we have a good way to evaluate the value of what these organizations provide, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be quite defensive of these when it comes to budget time. That I think overall, when I look at these numbers, I don't think it's even close. I think that they provide way more value than what they cost us. And I'll leave it at that, because I can talk all day on this.
Thank you. Councillor Jilek.
Yeah, I guess for me, I just like to reiterate again that the purpose of this report, in my opinion, was to give us the information, and we keep going back to nonprofits, and to me, it's making it, I feel like it's like the intent of the report is getting lost. The intent of the report is for information only. I think it's important information for us to have when we look at the CFO's remarks about the percentage of funding and what that looks like. It again, to me, is about, because I agree, we have a great community, we have a ton of volunteers, we have a ton of things that would not have happened without volunteers, but we need to keep in mind that this report is for information, so that when we are making the decisions of whether or not we can turn the water on and the sewer's going where the sewer's supposed to go, yeah, those aren't the fun and shiny things, but those are the most important parts, because you can bet your butt, if the water doesn't turn on, or if the water's gray when it comes out of the tap, or my sewer's not working, we're gonna have a lot more angry community members than we are not. So for me, I just wanna make sure, I think it's really important that we make the point that this is for information. This is not taking a shot at nonprofits. This is not anybody in this room saying that we're looking to shut nonprofits down or to not fund nonprofits. It's about making sure that when we make those decisions that we have the very best information that we can have. And I think that the staff has done an amazing job in this report. And thank you very much for it.
Councillor Dusson and then Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with what everybody is saying here, and realizing that this is for information only. And I really appreciate this report. Now, on the losses, I'm just wondering, Mayor, if there's any information or a breakdown that shows where these losses would be.
There is, and I think I did talk with the CEO, so I think we'll see some more information come forward.
Okay, thank you.
And I understand, I've seen some paper shuffling, but, and just to ad hoc ask, and we can ask the CEO and she can involve staff if she wishes. To me, I like to be able to indulge the information first, so I think we'll see more come from that, because I did meet with Ms. Scott and said that it'd be nice to have that, so I don't think, again, I say with Councillor Juliet, and I said that in my thing, I think it's great information for having that full fixed amount that we're talking about when we talk about grant aids and fee-for-services. That there is other costs. We should know those costs, so should the taxpayer. But I think we'll see that more information coming out, and whether it's attached to the same report with more in-depth information for council as we move forward through budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor Clickash.
I'd just like to know what other grants these people are getting, and the total number of grants, so that we can make better decisions. in the funding. So if you're getting a fee for service or grant and aid from the town, and you get other grants from other areas, I think we should know about that.
Ms. Scott, when organizations apply for a grant and aid or through the fee-for-service, I know they submit documents and financials to staff. Is it listed in there anywhere if they were to apply for grants or if they've been receiving other grants to mark them down?
I am not familiar with those forms, so I will ask that question of our Director of Finance.
Thank you, Your Worship. When we get the financial statements in, we also get their annual financial reporting. So if they had received grants funding in the previous year, it'll be in that annual financial reporting. Now, typically with grant and aids, that's for a one-time special project. And if they have applied for other grants and funding, that's usually disclosed, or if they're attempting to get other funding, that's disclosed for the grant and aids.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Follow-up, Councillor Clickash?
Yes, the other thing is the taxation part of this, where we, as council, we had decided to set the taxation at 9% this year. Now it's 5.2%, but we're paying 3.8% out of surplus. Well, that's like an aid to taxation then.
Ms. Scott?
Yeah, I'll try and explain it better first, and then I'm sure our Director of Finance can correct me where I'm wrong there too. In the 2024 financial plan, in order to keep the tax increase at the rate council wanted it to be, the financial or budget expert that was hired took it out of surplus and reserve to make up what we needed for revenue in order to fund operations. And operations cannot continue to be funded by surplus or reserves. That's just not an ongoing way to, a sustainable way to fund operations.
That's right.
So in order to maintain the 2004 service levels in 2005, we automatically needs to take 3.8% of that 9% mandate just to fund the services at the 2004 level. But in case I got that information wrong, I will ask our Director of Finance to clarify that.
Through to council, yeah, that's absolutely correct. It was a decision made to utilize surplus funds, and whenever operating surplus, which is why that policy is coming forward as well, it clearly identifies that operating surplus should not be utilized for ongoing operating costs, because you're just sort of kicking the can down the road of when the increase will have to happen. So in this case, it was 3.8%, which for the 9% mandate automatically dropped it down to the 5.2.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councillor Clickash?
Well, if we keep doing this, like she says, we're kicking the can down the road. And it's going to be a big problem here, you know. We have to pay it, every year we have to pay taxes, the amount that we need, so we can have all these grant and aids and everything else, you know, the infrastructure covered and all this stuff. So, I mean, it's a bad way to look to operate by doing it this way.
Yep, I won't disagree with you. I think the debate happened at our budget meeting for 2024. I think it was a very open and transparent debate. Majority of council voted in one way, and that's what we decided for 2024 budget. We'll have that opportunity to debate that again in 2025 and go from there once we know what the increases are. But I don't disagree with what you're saying, Councillor Clickash, in regards to if you keep holding it off, eventually the taxation comes. Councillor Hoffman, then Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. As it was a touchy subject, I'll try to keep this one brief. I think as long as the taxation rate is catching up, I don't have a problem as long as that percentage is shrinking over the next couple of years. We did 3.8%. If we're down to 2 this year, I'm okay with a touch-up with surplus. Council had a great deal of varying opinions. There were not two opinions that we chose before. And I thought in the end that was a reasonable compromise for this year, and it may be something similar next year. If we don't want a big hit to taxation in a given year, then we can do a medium hit, and assuming that our policy will still allow it, is using less surplus until we get it. But I do agree we need to catch up relatively quickly. But if we don't like the number, we're gonna do the same argument through budgeting again this year, that we hit people's maximums rather quickly, and we argue over every item in the budget, and we end up in the same spot. So I just wanted to make it clear that as long as it's not illegal, I think that was a reasonable compromise this year. And as long as it's heading in the right direction, less taken from surplus each year, I think that should be on the table.
Yep. That debate will happen during budget, not during this report. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. You know, our CAO had to talk me through this one a couple of times. It just didn't quite resonate with me. I couldn't quite understand until it sounded to now it sounds like we in fact had a 13.8 tax increase last year, but instead of actually having a 3.8 tax percent, we took 3.8 from reserves, and now we're taxing for it this year. Am I incorrect? And this is basically what happened? Like we had a 13.8 tax increase last year?
Ms. Scott.
I wasn't here for budget season.
Can you have a moment?
And neither was our Director of Finance, but she might be able to add some more clarification to it.
Can I, before, I apologize for the frustration in my voice. It is not directed at any staff about this, like none of you were here, don't worry. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a fair question. I mean, I was going to answer, but it's nicer when staff answers, and I apologize for putting Ms. Scott on it. I mean, she wasn't here during budget, so she was a budget specialist, but I mean, what you're saying is exactly it. But I mean, it's nicer when it comes from staff because they're just a little bit more thorough, and I think it's a little bit more understandable when it comes to all of us as council, instead of just one person or two people understanding it.
Yeah, through to council, the tax increase would have been 3.8% higher last year than what it actually was. So instead of having that 3.8%, council chose to take that from the reserves, which is that sort of kicking the can down the road. So it would be as if you're utilizing them again, you're kicking the can down the road. Also realizing there's inflation. So sometimes your 3.8 that you took from last year is 4.2 this year.
Appreciate that. All right, a little bit off topic, but I mean, it's within the report, but obviously there'll be debate when it comes to setting rates and percentages as we get closer through budget. Any more discussion in regards to grant funding and revenue loss resulting in the increase to property taxation? Again, thanks staff for the report. I think it's been talked around it and asked about it and hinted about it, and to have it in front of us, I think it's great information. The transparency part is very, very important in my opinion. I had quite the discussion with our CEO in regards to that. I know when it first came out, maybe that it was taken that, oh, maybe council's gonna start doing slashes and cuts and stuff like that. And I just wanna, you know, I've talked to a few people on the weekend and just wanna, I mean, it'll be up to council come budget season, but I mean, this was for information for, not only for council, but staff in total in my thoughts, but also the taxpayers to show that we have, whether it's grant and aids, the one time or the fee for services, that there is other money attached to besides what we're actually giving out. I think it was very important to understand that when we sign on to contracts and stuff like that and do increases, what the cause is later on. And I think it shows us whether that's the $1 thing. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. I'm not saying it's a bad thing for a $1 lease on land and stuff like that when we talk about the organizations that are running those spaces. I don't believe that we could do it, not even close to what they do it for. When you talk about volunteer hours, how do you put an amount to it? The only time you can tie an amount to volunteer hours is when they use it for grant funding and they apply for grants. It's very, very important when they have those hours, and to me, those volunteer hours are worth more than a paid work hour when it comes to a volunteer hour because of the difference in it, whether it's the heart, the soul, the tears, there is a difference there. So I think it's very, very important into that. Councillor Julik.
And I think that this information is important for the nonprofits as well. Like, when you're looking at your own books as a nonprofit, and I've sat on a lot of boards, so I get it. And so to look at what it would cost if you weren't getting this, is the work that we're doing valuable at this point? Are the headaches, the tears, all of that stuff that comes with it? Like, to me, these numbers also help each nonprofit look at their operations and see what they're looking like. What would this look like if we had to pay a tax? What would this look like if we had to be responsible for the mowing or whatever those pieces are? The lease thing for me is important, because what happens if a nonprofit folds and then we have to do a cleanup or something? Like, those are all responsibilities that we have as the District of Tumbler Ridge. And as much as I support the nonprofits and things like that, we still need to make sure that we're mindful of these things, because we still have camps out in the bush. I don't know what happens on the provincial level, but we got 3 camps out there in the bush that haven't been cleaned up. How is that supposed to get? And to me, that would be a shame if that happened in Tumbler Ridge. So I think that that's one of the other pieces in this report that are important, that it helps the nonprofits have information for themselves, as well as us when we're making decisions that are going to affect future councils.
Thank you. Any other discussion in regards to the grant funding and revenue resulting? Okay. Did I hear something or no? Okay, sorry. Okay. That must be it. Council Remuneration and Expense Amendment Bylaw, report dated September 9th, 2024, from Deputy Corporate Officer regarding Council Remuneration and Expense Amendment Bylaw. Council's wishes. Councillor Noxana.
The council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder, Councillor Julik. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I know I have spoken the same on this issue multiple times, sitting together at this table as us, councillors and mayor. But this year in particular, we are facing what could be the biggest budget increase or tax increase the District of Tumbler Ridge has ever faced. Is this actually the year that we as a table of 7 are deciding to give ourselves raises? When we ran for council in 2023, we knew what we were going to be paid for this position. We knew that there wasn't benefits involved because this is a part-time job. I strongly feel that it would be irresponsible of us to spend this money specifically this year.
Councillor Norbert, then Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. So, I don't know, I have a hard time accepting any sort of raise to my position other than cost of living. You know, costs go up. I think pay goes up. That goes with all positions. That's just something I fundamentally believe in. But I don't agree with, you know, the $1,000 increase for councillors. And I would just like to see an opt-in, opt-out option for the benefits. You know, if people need it, well, you know, why not? Other municipalities do it as well. We need to make sure that we're taking care of everyone in our municipality. That includes elected officials. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel Councillor Noxana's sentiment, and I actually agree. I don't believe that any elected official should be giving themselves a raise. I think the raise should be for the next group following if you believe that the position is worth more than what it is. So I'm actually fine with the numbers, but I would want it to come into effect with the next council, not this one. And as far as benefits, what I understood is it's pretty standard for benefits to be in other municipalities. So like Councillor Norbury, I agree, this should be an opt-in, opt-out and should be part of the consideration. And it's not really touched in the report, but we had 7 people apply for 6 positions. I don't think that's enough. I think we need to do something to make being a council member in town more appealing than what it is. And I'm not saying it has to be a dollar figure. I'm not saying it has to be a direct benefit, but I think we need to do something to try to attract more people to be interested in this particular type of service. And that's all I had for this section. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jelic.
So I'm going to go to page 56, and I was fortunate to talk to Ms. Scott and Ms. Wayner today. And while I could explain what they explained to me, this 15.7, and it's the increase to council budget, I'm wondering if I could get Ms. Weiner to just say it again, what she told me today, if that's okay with Ms. Scott, so that I make sure that I'm understanding properly.
Ms. Scott?
Yeah, so I believe what Councillor Julick is talking about is the discussion we had, you know, when we're trying to meet that 5.2% budget mandate and what that's gonna mean for council's budget. I mean, because it's not going to be just public works budget or community services budget, it'll be council's budget as well. And so I will let the Director of Finance summarize basically what we talked about in our conversation today.
Through to Mayor and Council, yeah, the conversation of the 5.2% is every department is building their budget up with a maximum of 5.2%. So council's budget, if you looked at this, would currently go up to 15.7%. So therefore, if you want to maintain the 5.2%, it would mean some other department, other budget, something else would have to be cut to bring that down. So every budget's sort of looking to be built up at 5.2, and that's the max, and staff will identify if there's things that need to be cut or service levels that will be impacted by maintaining that. But yeah, that's the conversation. So overall, for council's budget, this increases a 15.7, which is why I broke it down into little smaller categories, so council could pick and choose and still potentially meet the 5.2% mandate that he set.
Thank you.
So for me, that,
Councillor Noxana, sorry. Sorry, hit the wrong button. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I'd also like to point out if we're looking at a 5.9%, so 5 point whatever percent, 5.2% mandate, the benefits proposed alone exceeds that. I would say almost nowhere provides full 100% benefit package to part-time employees. If people feel anywhere, not just councillors, feel like they need insurance or benefits, they should absolutely go and solicit those themselves. This is not something that I feel should be covered in a part-time position as a councillor.
Thank you. Councillor DeSille and then Councillor Julick.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have to agree on this. I don't feel with our 5.2% we should be having a raise. As much as it would be nice to have benefits and whatnot, yeah, that's just way, way over. So, yeah, no, I'm not for this at all.
Councillor Julick and then myself.
I think that I think when I looked at this and after I got the information today from Ms. Scott and Ms. Weiner, what I took away from it is that we needed to look at it. I think it's hard at any time in municipal politics to give yourself a raise. I also think, as Councillor Hoffman alluded to, we had 7 people apply for 6 council positions. And I don't know how we change that without being more mindful of the time and effort it takes for people. We have our meetings at 5 o'clock. That means anybody who works 8 to 5, they're gonna have to take time off to get to a meeting at 5. We have commitments to go to different meetings and things like that. That means people have to take time off work. We have people that maybe would serve in our community, but they have children and they can't afford babysitting. I think that we need to keep in mind, while we do this job, we need to be inclusive and we need to make sure that there's equity amongst it. I don't think that for me, this raise is about what I, Roxanne Julick, am taking home for a take-home pay. It's what I think this job is worth and how much work I believe you need to put into the job. So it's about so much more than the dollars and cents. So far as the actual things brought out, I think cell phones are reasonable. I don't know that everybody who runs has a cell phone, nor do they have a smartphone. So to me, it's a piece of equipment that you need to do your job. The increase, this position hasn't been increased, even though it was in policy that wages were to be increased for the CPI since 2019. So that's 5 years where salaries weren't increased when they should have been. The $1,000 increase for councilors, I'm happy to give that up. At the same time, though, we have this other piece that's not listed here. We have, when you leave town, that you get $100 if you're out of district for this meeting or that meeting or the next meeting. And to me, that's not equitable. It's not, because if you're in town, I've sat through some pretty long meetings in town, and I'm not sure why, just because I left town, I get paid for it and I don't get paid for it in town. So I think that, that dollar amount is definitely dependent on how much a counselor might work. So I think that there's more than just what's listed here that we need to go through. The benefit package, I agree, like, we've got the numbers and stuff in here. Some districts do it, some districts don't. I would be supportive of it if you were allowed to opt in, opt out, and if it came directly out of our paycheck. I think the ability to be part of the plan, but that the district pay for it, I do not think is something that I would support. I go back also to the VIP passes. If you look at that dollar amount, that's pretty big numbers, but we're not talking about that. And I know that we continue to say that there's not a cost involved. There is a cost involved. We wouldn't look at any other business and think, if I give this away for free, that there's no cost to that. This is the revenue I may or may not be losing. We can continue to pretend, in my opinion, that there's no cost, but if I'm golfing on the golf course, I'm taking up somebody else's tee time. If I'm working on that machine in the gym, I'm taking up that machine in the gym, and I'm wearing and tearing that machine. So there is a cost involved. When we're doing reports and we're getting information back from our staff, if we don't count those numbers in there, then to me, we're not getting a true reflection. Just like we just said about the not-for-profit stuff, that we want to have a true reflection, those VI passes are the exact same thing, in my opinion. So I think then we also have meals. We had a meal before our meeting tonight. There's cost to that. That's not included in this report either. So I think that there's a lot more things within this that we could be talking about. And I really appreciate the report, because I know we talked about it quite a few months ago. I don't think it's ready to go to any regular meeting. I don't know, maybe Mayor Kakalka will have some thoughts, but I feel like I could bat this around a bit tonight before I ever was comfortable bringing it to a regular meeting. So those are my thoughts.
Thanks. Yeah, I got myself and then Councilor Albury. I'll be honest, a lot of this stuff is what I've brought forward. I mean, I understand how council feels. It's pretty tough to give yourself a raise. It's an unpopular decision. They talk about that at the EBCM every year. Every meeting I attend, they talk about it, and I do attend a few things that council don't attend at the EBCM, and it's quite the discussion we have about it. You know, I understand frustration and everything else in the same aspect to me, and it wasn't, hey, we should give council a raise, not the mayor. I believe at this point there's such a gap in between the two titles of payment that council should be getting a raise. Again, Councillor Julik mentioned that the increases haven't been appropriated since 2019. So I understand how council feels, and if you don't want to do it, that'll be up to council as a whole. Now, my thing is, the reason I brought it forward was for that reason, is to start splitting that gap, and it wasn't about, oh, what do I get to take home, and some of the councilors have already mentioned that, but it's about paying an individual the worth of the job they're doing. In my opinion, when a councillor says, oh, I don't want the raise, I don't think we deserve it, oh, so then we're not working hard enough. I beg to differ. Kind of actually, it makes me wonder when I see all these councillors at certain functions, whether it's the fall fair, meeting with our Indigenous neighbours, going to the EBCMs, the FCMs, attending all the liaison organizations that all council does. Everybody has their own groups, whether it's the Tunbridge Library, the museum, the Geopark, NDITs, and I can go on and on about that. It is unpopular. There's no question in my mind when it comes to that, but I also think realistically, we need to do it. If we don't do it, it's going to be so far behind as we move forward that gap is never going to be closed in. That's what I believe is that gap is, and it's not about, oh, we need more people to run in 2026. We only had 7 and run in the last election. I don't think any worries about what your fee is. I didn't know what I got paid as a mayor when I first ran. It was Ms. Torval had read out the amount when we got together that night just to go over an orientation. To me, it's not always about the money, but I mean, to me, the same aspect a person should be paid, and, you know, I mean, I have no problem answering to the taxpayers about it. You know, we talk about VIP passes, everybody's excited about these VIP passes, and I'm gonna argue that again. I pay taxes on my VIP pass, it's not free, I pay a tax on it. I know other groups that get them, or individual groups, they don't pay taxes on that. It's a taxable benefit to me. When I reached out, when this first came out, and I reached out to, or I'll be honest, taxpayers reached out to us because we actually mentioned about offering it up to all staff. That was a big no. And no disrespect to the staff. I mean, I thought it was a good idea, keep them healthy, keep them fit, make sure they could show up to work the next day. But then I asked, what did you think about the other recommendation? And I didn't hear a bad, upset thought from any taxpayer I talked to about the VIP passes for council. I pay taxes on it, it's a taxable benefit, I have no issue with that. Am I taking a spot, a tee-off time for another person? I don't know. I've probably paid more in taxes than I've used it, to be honest. I think I've golfed 3 times with it. So I think it's frustrating when we bring that back and forth about it, but to me, like when council says, is there a cost? Oh, I think there's a cost to every VIP pass we give. I think it's helped the VIP passes keep our nurses and our doctors in our community. I think our VIP passes have assisted the fire department to make sure we have personnel that want to volunteer. They actually pay taxes on it now because they're a paid on-call individual. So some don't even opt in anymore because they're having to pay tax on it. We have search and rescue. I think that helps their membership drives and stuff like that. And ECs. I did have it right. Thanks, Councilor Barry. I think it's helping them. So I think that when, like, to me, I don't think, and no disrespect, I think the report was really, really good that staff had supplied earlier. But yeah, we didn't have a cost of it. If we had nobody in the pool, does it cost us the same or does it not? Do I have to cut the grass at the golf course if I have nobody out there golfing? No, we don't have to cut it. We'll just let it grow. Probably not. So that's why I said no cost. And that was just the argument there. But get back on the topic. I really, really believe, you know, I don't disagree with it when it comes to benefits. I've seen the costs and stuff. And I mean, I'll be honest, there's some other communities that are missing. Chetwynd's missing on here. Chetwynd is an opt-in, opt-out or something like that for benefits. You got a community of Pouce Coupe, 762 population. Benefits, yes. Sure, their wages are a little different, 10.5 for a councillor, 21 for a mayor. District of Taylor, 1,317 population, 11,828 for a councillor, $26,000 for the mayor, and they're yes for benefits. City of Fort St. John, 21,000 people. Their council gets 32,850. Mayor is 89,000. They also get a healthy living. Yes, I'm not sure what the amount is. Not there. 500 a year it says, and benefits. Yes. Dawson Creek, city of 12,000. 27,000 for the council member. 79,000 for the mayor, and their benefits is a no. Vehicle allowance is $500 a month. PRRD, their electoral directors, so maybe a bit different, but 13,400 for the directors, 33,500 for the chair, the board chair, and then the co-chair gets an increase. Electoral area directors are included in benefits. All directors are not, just electoral directors on the PRRD. So I think it's important to have that discussion. Now, am I saying that we should all get benefits? That's not what I'm saying. But when I brought this forward, it was to have it all out in front of council, to have that open debate. I love PMPs because, be honest, everything you say here today, you'll hear on the street. Today's Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, probably again Monday, Tuesday. Like, it gives residents a chance to watch us on Zoom, and you'll hear. And I'll be honest, I can't wait whether that's the negative impact of the discussion we had about this or the positive. You know, I've heard from when I brought this up at the UBCA meeting we had with just the mayors and an organization there, and we were talking about unpopular, and this was the first thing that was brought. I thought this was one of the things I was really going to focus on in 2023, 2024, which I have. I brought it forward. I don't think I'm ready to send it back to staff to bring to a regular meeting. I think there's some other things that we need to maybe dialogue, bring back, have some discussions. There is an impact on our taxation for it. There 100% is. But I'll be honest, I look around the whole municipality, there's an increase in wages every year. Every year there's a wage increase, and that's no disrespect. I think the staff deserve it. You know, I also look at it that as individual councils and that is, and I, you know, I know when I first put the motion out there, and maybe that's where there's some hard feelings with council, and if I disrespected anybody, I apologize, but I don't believe the mayor deserves an increase on the first year, and I stated that and the reasoning why. I think there's too much of a gap, and I think the first time we do a raise, it should be just a council. With the following year, with the CPI increase to both council and the mayor, because I think it's important to move forward after that. But we need to start that, putting that gap a little closer. We're quite a ways away. If you read the report that staff reached out to other municipalities, councillors and the mayor wages are right there. There's a less of a gap, and I don't know why there's that gap. I never paid attention. But I think it's very, very important that we have this discussion and start discussing about it before we get to that budget, because last year we had the same thing, the same discussion with council as a whole. And to me, I don't think we as council pushed on it hard enough or had those hard enough debates with each other to make sure it went into the budget for 2024. So we had to pause it, which I'm fine with. In the same aspect, I'm looking for the friendly debate and the open debate, and we can pause it to 2025 and make it retroactive in 2027 after the election. Like if that's what you got, if that's what the majority wants, so be it. Then that's up to whoever decides to run or gets elected. But at the same aspect, I believe that council has missed out in regards to being paid for the job they do. And I look at it, the liaison and the hours you spent. And I think it's very, very important for that. That's what helps offset the not getting $100 when I leave Tumbler Ridge, right? That's what that offset is. I'll be honest, I'll talk about it next week, or I'll talk about it at the end of the meeting a bit, but, I look at the CAO, we were out at we were visiting with industrial partners, and we were way past 5 o'clock getting back to town hall. I didn't get paid. Our CAO wasn't getting paid after her certain time. So when I look at that, council does the same thing, and that's why I brought it forward. But I think, whether we put this to another P&P to have a little bit more time, maybe not as much on the P&P, maybe not having a whole bunch of staff in the room, so we're having, I'll be honest, they're probably not being paid anyways, so they only allowed to bank so many hours. So to me, when I look at that, I look at probably half the staff in this room right now is sitting here for free. So to me, if that's the thing that we want to have a little bit more thorough discussion, I think we move it to another P&P and less things on our P&P so we can have a more transparent and open dialogue about this issue, and either move it and defer it to 2027 or actually move forward with it. That'd be my comments. Councilor Norbury.
Thanks, Mayor Kakaka, and thank you, staff, for your volunteer hours. One of the comments that we're not talking about VIP passes, but we did. I think it's poor decorum to continually bring up sour grapes about an issue that was debated around council and a decision was made. There are issues that I may feel differently than the general council have made a decision on, but I try and make a point of it to come into understanding with the decision that was made, rather than continually bring it up when there's an opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's already been, not to cut you off, Councilor Norbury, but I think I've circled that back already.
I don't want it to be said again, because it's been brought up multiple times. So I'll make a motion to remove. I think I agree that we're not ready to move forward with this, but I think we should be giving staff some targeted removal on this, so that I'm happy to remove some things. So I'd like to make a motion to remove the $1,000 increase to council wages.
Seconder, Councilor Noxana. Discussion? I appreciate the recommendation, but I won't be supporting it. Any other discussion? I'm sorry, Councilor Julik. About the motion on the floor.
I understand about the motion on the floor.
Has to be about the motion on the floor. I'll come back to you after the fact.
All right. For me, the $1,000, yeah, I won't support it, simply because I think it's as a whole. I think we have to talk about the whole remuneration. I don't think the $1,000 is just on its own. When I look at the percentages there, the $1,000 is 1.84, but the 2024 CPI increase, I would want more information. I just think that to make a motion at this point is not, I won't support it either.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman and Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I will support the motion on the floor. I think there's a lot to be done with this topic. And as I stated earlier, I think deferral until the next council is something where I haven't heard anything that changes my mind. I guess my question is, do we have to go through these individually? And, or can we, I don't know, let's leave it at individually. You can hack and slash however we want. That's fine.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. Ultimately, we have set mandates to staff on maximum levels. When we decided to set a mandate of 9%, for me, that was a mandate for their budget, at 3.8, it's unfortunate. Anyways, if we're setting mandates with staff on maximums, I think we should be doing the same to ourselves. And if this brings that down a little bit, I'm in support. Thanks.
Thanks. Any more discussion? If you can just read your motion again, Councilor Norbury, please.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to remove the $1,000 increase to council wages.
Thank you. Councilors, Ms. Scott?
I just want to provide some clarification there. There's nothing to remove it from. It hasn't been added.
I think we're trying to remove it from this report.
Okay.
Any other direction from staff? Because it didn't make sense to me, to be honest. I mean, I just don't think they wanted to move forward, but I didn't think we'd be moving anything forward. But Scott, do you have any other information there?
May I? If they don't want the $1,000, they should sanction without the $1,000, and then we will increase their indemnity to 16, so then we will have an actual motion to.
Yeah, so just for clarification, because like I said, there's not really, we haven't added the thousands, we can't take the 1,000 out. There's been no motion to add the 1,000. So, I mean, if I think at this point, if we were gonna take that 1,000 off, it would come off what you're already being paid because we haven't added that 1,000. I would recommend, I mean, if we're talking about any kind of increase minus that 1,000, that just be included in another motion going forward. So for example, in recommendation number 2, where it says that council remuneration amendment bylaw be drafted contemplating the adjustment to the councillor's indemnity of 17,673, that includes that 1,000. So then, if there was a motion, that would just be 16,673 instead of 17,673.
Sure.
There may be some more clarity that we can provide there as well from the Director of Finance.
Thank you to Mayor and Council. Staff could bring back to the next meeting the entire council budget because there may be savings in other part of the council budget as an overall that could be realized, and it could be offset to help if there's wage increases. There could be other places within that budget council may wish to cut. So instead of looking at it just narrowly, we could bring back the entire budget for council's discussion, and then you guys could work at it for your 5.2% mandate.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think staff just answered what I was going to say. What I was trying to do by supporting the motion was clarity on sort of this list as going forward. But if we're going to do a more macro view of the whole budget, I'm fine with that. So I rescind support for the motion and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. The purpose behind the motion is to give staff clear direction. So I've found in the past that during debates like this, some things will all sort of nod our head with and say, yeah, okay, we'll move on, and staff goes ahead and they bring back a new report. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, no, we didn't agree to that. And so that's why I want to make clarification so that everyone's on the same page that we don't want a council $1,000 increase to council at any time. Right? That's the purpose. If staff is saying that just a general conversation's enough, then I'm fine with that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think what staff's saying is, let's maybe look at the whole thing, and like listening to the CAO is like, we haven't given $1,000, so you're taking $1,000 off, but you don't want to move forward with it. I think I have another idea, and we have a motion on the floor, but I'm going to put a deferral motion on the floor to defer the council rumination and expense report to the next PMP. Can I get a seconder? Councilor Jilek. Discussion? I'll go to Councilor in a minute, but just my comments would be listening to staff as a whole. Maybe they bring the budget, council's budget to the same meeting, and it's a full discussion in regards to all of it. Then we see it all, and we're not just, I think some staff used it as a piecemealing it together or pulling it apart. Then we get to see it all, and maybe working with our CAO, we can try to keep that PMP somewhat small so we have a bit more dialogue on that one topic. So, Councillor Jilek.
Yeah, I really appreciate the CFO's suggestion. I think that it will give us a better chance to look at all the things, because the 325, I honestly couldn't tell you with the 325 that we're already spending in our budget. So I really appreciate that, and I'll be supporting the deferral.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, going to call the question on the deferral of the report to the next PMP. All in favor? Carried. Okay, before I do question and answer period, I just want to make a comment and such, but just want to congratulate Conima Resources in regards to the permit that was received last Thursday morning. I did email council once I was advised, but I had waited, I was aware of it, but I waited until Conima Resources had reached out, which was Lisa Risvold had reached out. Myself and our CEO were supposed to have a meeting with Lisa Risvold and Brian Sullivan at the office on Thursday. Those plans had changed. They asked us if we would come out to the mine site instead. So Lisa and myself, we joined Lisa Risvold and Brian Sullivan at the mine site for the celebrations of the permit and the moving of the coal. So again, I just want to thank our CEO. She's never been to a mine site. I probably didn't give her enough heads up. I believe she wrapped a pair of white pants. But, I mean, I'd like Lisa to just speak about maybe just her experience, but I'll be honest with you, be up there and see the excitement. Brian Sullivan went through the whole warehouse building and offices, hugging every employee that he could find in a cubicle. I think it was so exciting to see what that meant for Conima Resources, the community of Tumber Ridge as a whole, but the residents, you know, knowing that, you know, they got some securement with having that first initial permit for the Little Windy restart. And then we were invited to go all the way up to the pit and watch the shovel start filling trucks. So, but I think it's important to hear from Lisa because it was the first time on a mine site. So, Lisa?
Yeah, it was really neat, and it was really exciting to be there. I'd never seen anything like that before, and it was a real learning experience for me. But just to echo what the mayor said too, just the excitement at the mine site itself with all of the employees, and you know what that's going to mean to the district of Tumbler Ridge. It was really special to be a part of that, I think.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it was a pretty exciting day. Apologize, we didn't have an opportunity there wasn't enough time, but I don't believe there was enough room for all of council. But again, we were supposed to have a meeting in regards to the UBCM, but it got moved. Question and answer period. Gallery. No questions? Rose? Oh, sorry, you were moving. I thought maybe you had a question.
No, I think it's always good for difference of opinions.
Okay,
As the Queen once said, they may vary.
thank you. Any email questions?
No.
Thank you. Take adjournment. Councilor Norbury.
That the September 9th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. My bad.